This video is going to be a little different. A few weeks ago, I announced on this channel that going forward, I was going to cover all MMA and football related news as well as professional wrestling. So for anyone who has an issue with pro wrestling and are genuinely not interested, I advise you to stop watching this video right away. And for anyone who is into pro wrestling and tuned in for this historic pay-per-view co-hosted by All Elite Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling, well, all of you are more than welcome to stay. Alright, with that being said, let us now get into this video and take an in-depth look at the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. So, I have categorized this video into two different parts. Number 1, the wrestlers who I feel stole the show at Forbidden Door, and number 2, the big talking points from Forbidden Door and the potential rivalries that we could be looking forward to in the near future. Alright, so getting down to category number 1, the wrestlers who I feel stole the show. Forbidden Door was definitely one of the best pay-per-views I have watched in recent years. I mean, in terms of creative booking, this pay-per-view was fantastic. They didn't do anything over the top here and everything felt quite smooth throughout the show. Of course, I do have a few critical points regarding this show, but first, let's talk about all the positives. So, in terms of the wrestler who I think stole the show and stood out the most at Forbidden Door, the first name on this list is none other than QT Marshall. I mean, some might think that this is a shocking entry into this list, but trust me, QT Marshall is one of the best and most experienced workers out there right now. And the Factory's match against Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto on the buy-in proved the same. The next name on this list is also someone who competed on the buy-in. I'm talking about the one and only Swerve Strickland. Despite his differences with Keith Lee in recent weeks, Strickland and Lee have proved time and time again why they are such an incredible tag team. And even though I feel that their match against El Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru was a bit random with no proper storytelling to it, I certainly cannot complain about the match itself. I think Desperado and Kanemaru did an incredible job against someone who is twice their size in the form of Keith Lee, but Swerve Strickland was the one who stole the show for me in this match. His double stomp to Desperado on the outside was just an insane spot, and if you ask me, I would love to see Swerve and Desperado in a singles match at some point down the road. Next up, we move to the main card. Starting off with an incredible 6-man tag team match between the team of Chris Jericho, Minoru Suzuki and Sammy Guevara against Shota Umino, Wheeler Yuta and Eddie Kingston. Great match to start off the main card, and for me, I think it was Umino who stole the show here and showcased how much he has improved in recent years. Next up, we had the 3-way tag team match between FTR, the United Empire's Great Khan and Jeff Cobb, and Roppongi Vice. And there could be only one obvious answer here. Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler once again stealing the show, adding to their list of great matches and also becoming the IWGP Tag Team Champions for the very first time. Then we had the 4-way match between Malachi Black, Miro, Pac and Clark Connors to crown the first ever All-Atlantic Champion. And here, I honestly feel like naming all 4 guys because this match was incredible. But the one wrestler who actually stole the show here is none other than NJPW's Clark Connors. Originally, this man wasn't even supposed to be in the match, and there were a few people who were like, who's this guy? And Connors just went out there and showcased why he belongs in the ring with the absolute best. At one point in the match, the crowd also chanted his name, so that was a cool touch. Then we had the Dudes with Attitudes against the Bullet Club, and we had Sting doing crazy high-flying stuff for a 63-year-old man. I mean, this guy went absolutely nuts with that stage dive and everything else in between, and also a solid outing for Bullet Club's El Fantasmo. I'm personally a huge fan of this guy, and it was finally great to see him in AEW. So yeah, hopefully we get to see more of him going forward. Moving on, next up we had Will Ospreay against Orange Cassidy. Of course, these two men stole the show with that incredible match for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship. Both men were at the top of their game at Forbidden Door, and for anyone who has ever doubted Cassidy, well, he just proved everyone wrong once again with this match. I mean, Cassidy has always been a great wrestler despite some of the people criticizing him for his gimmick, so I don't really know why people were ever in doubt regarding this match. And as far as Will Ospreay is concerned, he is one of the absolute best wrestlers on the planet right now, one of my personal favorites as well, and I think if I had to put together a top 5 current best wrestlers at the moment, I would definitely put Ospreay in there. Next up we had Zack Sabre Jr. going one-on-one against Claudio Castagnoli, who stole the show with their match as well, much like Ospreay and Cassidy did in the previous match. A lot of people were disappointed because we didn't get Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr., but Castagnoli was the perfect replacement, and CSJ proving time and time again why he is such a great wrestler. Hopefully he gets his match against Danielson in Japan at some point down the road. Hopefully it happens at the Tokyo Dome at Wrestle Kingdom. So yeah, rounding off the main card for Forbidden Door, all the 6 competitors from the co-main event and the main event were incredible on the night, and it's really hard to pick just one name from a match that included Adam Cole, Hangman Adam Page, Kazuchika Okada, and the exceptional Jay White. I mean, all 4 guys were equally good in that match, and I can't say that one wrestler was better than the other, because obviously the finish to that match didn't go according to plan, with Adam Cole suffering a concussion. So it would be really unfair if I sort of picked one guy from this IWGP World Heavyweight title match. Instead, I'm going to put Jon Moxley and Hiroshi Tanahashi on my list for their incredible main event. Another great match for Moxley, and Tanahashi being Tanahashi, of course. This guy is so over as a babyface, he made the Chicago crowd cheer for him over Moxley at one point in the match. But nonetheless, congratulations to Jon Moxley for winning the interim AEW World Championship, as we all now look forward to a feud between him and the current champion CM Punk when Punk eventually returns from his injury. So moving on to category number 2, the big talking points from the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. There were plenty of talking points from Forbidden Door, and AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling did an excellent job in setting up some future feuds that we might see down the road. The first big talking point was how nicely AEW booked a young Shota Umino in a match involving the likes of Chris Jericho, Minoru Suzuki, and Eddie Kingston. I think the American audience weren't that familiar with Umino's work previously, considering that he has only competed in Japan and his excursion has been in the UK. So great job in showcasing what Umino is actually capable of doing inside the ring. They made it also look believable that he was actually going to get the win by submitting Chris Jericho in that match. Point number 2, and this is something that will surely get New Japan Pro Wrestling fans hyped up like me. Now that FTR have won the IWGP Tag Team Championships, it means that Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler are likely to compete in this year's World Tag League, which also means that we might see them in matches against the likes of the Guerrillas of Destiny, Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi, and hopefully we could also see them cross paths with the Good Brothers, who are currently signed to Impact Wrestling, in the World Tag League later this year. The Good Brothers obviously making their return to New Japan Pro Wrestling earlier this year, and Carl Anderson is of course the reigning Never Openweight champion as well. Point number 3 is Pac's huge All-Atlantic Championship win at Forbidden Door. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how AEW will book him with this new title. I'm hoping that they book the champion to defend this belt in places such as Mexico and Japan, or maybe even in the UK, who knows. But nonetheless, I'm very happy for Pac. He totally deserves to hold the title after, he had to go through some adversities in the early stages of his AEW career with his visa issues and all that stuff. So yeah, definitely happy for Pac. Point number 4, so the Young Bucks were back into the Bullet Club for one night only, and it just felt so right to see Matt and Nick Jackson back into the faction. Point here is that AEW needs to book more of El Fantasmo. I mean, I have seen him compete in Japan ever since he came into the Bullet Club. I've seen him on Impact Wrestling, and honestly, what he did at Forbidden Door wasn't even half of what Fantasmo is actually capable of. Some of the high-flying moves that he did in that match were just ridiculous. So I'm really hoping that we get to see more of ELP in AEW at some point down the line. Point number 5, and it is of course the return of Katsuyori Shibata. I mean, every time I hear Shibata's music, I get goosebumps. And to see him come face to face with Will Ospreay once again was just absolutely surreal. If you ask me, it was Ospreay versus Shibata a few years ago, which actually made me realize that Ospreay is much more capable inside the ring than just the high-flying stuff. And now look at him. He has come such a long way compared to his days as a junior heavyweight. So yeah, hopefully this leads to a potential IWGP United States heavyweight title match between Shibata and Ospreay after the G1 climax. Point number 6 is the debut of Claudio Castagnoli. If you haven't seen this man compete before in WWE, then trust me, you are in for an absolute treat. I mean, this guy moves like he is in his late 20s or early 30s, and there is no way you could actually possibly think that Claudio Castagnoli is 41 years old. And to see him in AEW with the Blackpool Combat Club, hopefully it leads to some more amazing singles matches or even tag team team matches with the likes of Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson and even Wheeler Yuta. Point number 7. Jay White. This guy is quite possibly my favorite wrestler at the moment. His promos, his in-ring presence, his awareness is very, very good. And to round it all off, he is just an incredible wrestler. He has proved it time and time again in Japan, and leading up to Forbidden Door, he proved how well suited he could be in the US competing under a mainstream company such as All Elite Wrestling. I mean, I loved every bit of Jay White and Will Ospreay in AEW, and now of course I'm looking forward to seeing them in the G1 Climax 32. The final point is of course AEW going back to the history between Eddie Kingston and Claudio Castagnoli. We are probably going to get a feud between these two men once again after Blood and Guts is done, but to see these two reignite their iconic rivalry at the end of the show was just such a great touch for old school fans especially. My final thoughts on Forbidden Door. I mean, this was one of the best pay-per-views I have watched in a very, very long time, and honestly, it didn't feel like it lasted for a total of 5 hours because of how smoothly all the matches went by. The crowd was absolutely red hot throughout the entire evening and weren't even burnt out at the end of the show. That also goes on to show you how well Forbidden Door was booked. So, congratulations to all the winners from Forbidden Door, including Thunder Rosa. I know I didn't mention her match against Toni Storm in this video, but honestly, that match felt a little underwhelming to me. Hopefully, they get to do a potential rematch and give both Rosa and Storm enough time for a proper match down the road. And congratulations to all the winners and AEW and New Japan management in general. This is one of those pay-per-views where I think you cannot afford to miss any of the matches. So yeah, if you're a pro wrestling fan, just go ahead, order the pay-per-view and watch it if you're looking for some good wrestling matches. So yeah, that's it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one with UFC 276 right around the corner, coming up this weekend. Thanks for watching.